when we get into the spells themselves, there's a spell in there. I think it's a one shot waiting to be played around this one spell.
Ooh, I'm excited.
And if that's a one or two session kind of side quest in a campaign, you got it from one spell.
Yeah, true.
And it just got the creative juices kind of flowing. So that's a really great tool for the DM.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel. My name is Bob, and I've got a very special guest here tonight. You've seen him on the channel before. He's played in a couple of our live streams, like Rank Amateurs, as well as Candlekeep and Journeys to the Radiant Citadel. Let's welcome back Kyle. Kyle, how's it going?
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me again, Bob.
Yeah,
Always a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely, and we actually did something similar. What we're going to be doing right now, we talked about a Kobold Press release about maybe a year ago at this point, right? It was almost a year ago, at least. It was the Beast 3, Tome of Beast 3. And
I got it. It's so good.
You did, right? It came
it's
the
so
Kickstarter.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard
I
a lot
got
of
a couple of weeks ago. I've already fit a couple creatures in. It's so, oh my God. It's
That's
really
awesome.
good.
I'm glad to hear that the book, came through and delivered. I mean, when you explained it to me, I was like, I really didn't pay too much attention to like the third party stuff that Kobold Press was releasing, but you really caught my attention to it after that discussion. So I was really anticipating this new release, which is we're here for Deep Magic Volume 2. I had not, like I said, I had prior to the last conversation, didn't know much about Kobold Press. Just knew that they existed in the sphere, but now I was really interested in seeing what they were going to produce. And you know what? I figured that now, more than ever, best to showcase some third-party publishers, right? Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. They've been getting a lot more attention lately.
Yeah.
Can't imagine why.
No idea why.
And, people are going to start looking for their preferred method to kind of keep what they're doing going without any.
Exactly.
And Kobold Press, I think, is one of the bigger beneficiaries of that attention because they've got so much out there already.
Yeah, they actually have the new project Black Flag, which is coming out. A lot of creators have signed on to it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be talking today about obviously the most recent release, Deep Magic, or excuse me, the news Kickstarter, Deep Magic. But I'll put links down to Kobold Press's website, their projects that they're coming up with, and the Kickstarter for Deep Magic. So everybody, once we finish this discussion, you can go through, follow the links, and sign up for yourself. But yeah, so we're here.
You can also on their website you can sign up to play test the project Black Flag.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll definitely put links to that so people can have access. But yeah, so today we're here looking at Deep Magic Volume 2, which is basically a compendium for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons that can be used to bolster arcane casters, really anyone that could take magic spells, to be honest with you. But the pre-copy, I keep messing this word up, the preview copy that we got, explains a little bit about what the purpose of this was. And when I read it, and I know you read it as well, I think I was thrilled to see that they're making a way to focus on a type of spells or a theme that you want to play as, but you don't have to focus on one school of magic. And that's basically what it is. It basically gives you methods and different categories of spells other than the school of magic that it's related to. And then you basically have abilities and new spells that kind of fit that theme. And your thoughts on the book as a whole?
Yeah, I think it's a really good way to sort of fill in some of the blanks in 5th edition. Like, the preeminent spellcaster is wizard, right? That's sort of when you think magic user, even the classic versions of D&D, magic user was a wizard. They have the most variety of magic. They have the access to the most spells. Besides healing, really, they really do everything. And in 5th edition, like when you pick your wizard school, like sometimes it's not really relevant to the wizard you're going to play. Kind of, like I played a divination wizard and I only took I didn't have a single divination spell. I wanted portent.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
That's such a great ability. But I didn't take any divination spells. Illusionists get great you know, tweaks that make illusion spells a little bit better, but as a whole, illusion is not the most powerful um, school. Like it's a lot of like there's a lot of optimal sort of paths you can take where illusion just kind of gets
Yeah,
by
and
the
also
wayside. There's actually an illusionist who's an NPC in my Tomb of Annihilation game, and the joke is that he's useless. Like even his like best friend, who's dead now, but like was just always ragging on his spells sucking. Like they're totally, we don't even need this.
yeah,
It's kind of a joke, a little,
yeah,
which is unfortunate because they're cool.
yeah.
Um,
But like you
so I
said,
think
you actually don't need to be an illusionist
yeah,
to really do illusion spells great.
yeah,
Like the portent divination wizard probably would make as good, if not better, than an illusionist wizard, because you could maybe
right,
throw those saving throws out there for people to fail. So
exactly,
it
exactly.
actually is kind of strange the way it's situated currently in the player's handbook. So I agree. This is a much more unique way and a style to build that theme.
Yeah, and by calling it a style, it doesn't pigeonhole it to wizard. Like if you call it a school, that's a
Mm,
wizard. If you call it a college, that's a bard. But
mm.
by calling it a style, it's sort of a generic term for someone casting magic. And they were smart. They went with fire.
Oh, the
Uh,
preview. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, what's more relatable than the guy who just wants to set everything on fire?
yeah. Yeah,
There's a
just blast them.
pyromaniac in every group, I think. But I've seen some of like the artwork from like the advertisements for the Kickstarter, and there's a kobold doing like watermancy. He looks like an avatar character.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're gonna hit
Mhm.
every base. But then the preview was nice because it shows like some of the mechanical tools to make your own kind of because they'll give you some great examples. I'm sure they're really good, and there's a lot of great stuff to play with. But um, if they don't really fit that mold, it's tools for the DM and the player to kind of build one together, using the ones that they've created as sort of like a little template. Okay, what's too strong, what's not strong enough. uh, and obviously the book itself is going to be massively filled with all these new kinds of spells, so you could make a style just out of the new stuff. So I think it's a fun way to kind of build on the system that we've already been using,
And I'm
rather
glad
than
you
start from scratch with something new.
I was gonna say, I'm
It's a
glad that
good way
you
to.
actually mentioned that you and your DM can kind of fit this style together. Like if you, it doesn't have to be the exact spell list that's given in the book. Because I'll be showing pictures right now. People will be seeing this, but I'm going to scroll through like how it sorts all of the current fifth edition spells into what they would consider these styles. But it also has the list of spells that they suggest. But you and your DM can absolutely tweak this. And my next question ultimately is going to be, is this a book designed for dungeon masters or players, or a bit of both? And I think the answer we're coming to here is it's really both.
Yeah. I mean, I always look when I look at a new book, I always look at it through the DM lens because I DM way more than I play. I'm sure you can relate to that. That's kind of the context that I kind of look at everything. Um, and a lot of these spells are probably wouldn't be picked by a player, maybe, but could be used as a tool by the DM to like facilitate a story for a one. I mean, when we get into the spells themselves, there's a spell in there. I think it's a one shot waiting to be played around this one spell.
Ooh, I'm excited.
And if that's a one or two session kind of side quest in a campaign, you got it from one spell.
Yeah, true.
And it just got the creative juices kind of flowing. So that's a really great tool for the DM. For players, it's important. It's a great tool. Great ideas. You really got to sort of show the DM what you're looking to do. Because like anything else, sometimes balance issues arise. Sometimes you have to make a little adjustment,
Right.
but that's a dialogue between the player and the DM, especially with third party stuff like Kobold Press. They lean more towards the experienced player, in my opinion. Like when we were discussing the monster manuals, they're tougher. they're tougher creatures than you're used to. When you look through their player options are very powerful. Like in their Tome of Heroes, they have a dragon barbarian, and eventually he gets a huge fire breath thing. And I'm looking at how many dice of damage it is, and I'm like, oh, and it's
So it's
once
more
per day.
it's
Like,
more akin
like
to
really, you're gonna do this every day?
it's more akin to
I
like
would
a
be like,
real
okay,
dragon breath, right? Is what
yeah,
you're saying?
maybe you can do it like multiple times a day, but it's not as powerful.
Right.
You work with the player a little bit.
Okay.
Or if you know you're going for a full blown, make you as powerful as possible, because I'm going to throw the worst, most difficult things. Yeah, you're going to need that giant fire breath. You're going to need that giant move to survive. So I think, although the spells in the preview are really well balanced, like there's always that little thing you have to adjust.
Yeah, we'll talk about the spells
So
very soon. Actually, I mentioned in the email we're going to present our top 3. We are going to see. I don't think they're going to overlap as much as we think, but I have some math. I'm not good at math, but I have some math for us for when we get to one of mine. Okay.
all right, you got it.
But yeah, so I do think this is absolutely the case here, right? You want to make products that players and DMs are going to buy. I mean, Wizards of the Coast has even discussed that. So they don't, the adventures are sold only to DMs, really, right? Or somebody who is potentially going to buy it. So it makes sense to try to always put supplements out there that give a little bit of both. So that way everybody in your, your circle would want to have that book.
And if a group chips in together,
yeah,
it's a tool for everybody.
That's exactly it. Yep.
And I looked it up really quick right before we started recording. This Kickstarter already has $470,000, 940% funded.
Yeah, I know. I saw an email update.
They've still got 25 days.
Yeah, I saw an email update for it.
The community is excited about this release.
Yeah, well, timing couldn't be better, and I do think that people are craving for stuff like this because this is different, right? It's not even I think the Tome of Beast 3, like you said, you just got yours and it's fantastic, but I think this is a different type of product, right? We're looking at something that could shape or vary spells, which can be very stagnant, right? I mean, spells are awesome, but the way to use them is a little different. And in this book, I should say, and that's what this book does. It actually has some other player options. Like there are some basically, I want to call them feats. They don't use feats as the name for it, but they are player options. So you pick. The way it works is you pick your style. And the preview we have is the fire based style. I forget they call it the burning ember or something like
pyromancy that. Or something.
Yeah, whatever it is. It's the pyromancy. It's a fire elemental spells, right? Grouping. And so if you pick this style, and anytime you would have an ability score increase or a feat option, you can take one of these player options from the style instead. And some of them are really cool. Like some of them help you flesh out this idea of like a flame concept. Not all of the style spells are even necessarily of the same school, right? You might think they're all evocation spells, but no, they vary throughout the style, which is really interesting because when I heard pyromancy, I'm like, all right, it's going to be all blasting spells, but it's not. There's some utility, there's some really cool ones, and so this helps you kind of balance it, and these player options give you other things that'll happen with your character, other effects, other abilities that aren't spells that are, again, within that flavor of pyromancy, and I really think that is a unique thing too. Like I said, I want to call them feats, but they're not. They give you different abilities that you can do based on the style of spells you pick.
Yeah, and again, it's just more options. I know with all the rigmarole going on with tabletop games, like a lot of new systems are going to be coming out, which will hopefully be as close as possible to what we all know.
Yeah.
But the base classes are, pretend all this hullabaloo never happened, right? Everything was trudging along like it has been the last few years. The base classes don't change. Mm-hmm. These are just, supplements on top of, but how many games do you play before you kind of get bored with a class? And you know what I mean? Like, clerics, I guess, could go for a while because they have so many different domains. Fighters though can kind of,
yeah. I only play a character class once in an edition, basically.
Yeah.
Like once I
And
try it, I'm done. Even if I didn't do all
yeah,
the subclasses, I'm kind of done. I want to move
you
on.
know,
And
some of these abilities that are kind of an option for you now, like you could go revisit a style or a build or a type of caster that you've already played,
mhm.
but now you have these, like, okay, I've done that, I've picked these spells, I've done the, I maxed out this and I went over here. Now these sort of feat replacement or feat alternative abilities can sort of motivate you to do something different. Like there's one that,
Yeah.
like, a fire cat mage type player can buff a flying mount
Yes, I saw that one.
that
That's
they're
cool.
riding, right?
Yeah. So let's showcase this
And
one here. Flyer Rider. It says as an action, you cause one huge or larger mount or vehicle that you can see to be surrounded by an aura of flame up to 1 hour. While the flames are active, the target emits a bright light in the 30-foot radius and dim for an additional 30 feet. The flames are heatless, harmless, and can be ended at any time, requiring no action. While the flames are active, you can use a bonus action to expend a spell slot of 3rd level or lower. When you do so, the target's base mount speed increases by 10 feet per level of the expended slot. So yeah, you can basically make your mount light up and then go super fast if you got to get somewhere. And that's just, like I said, it's a cool little option that you can get that's not in 5th edition books, and it's something that's going to reflavor your person here. Like you don't really take feats as the wizard, or I guess you really could, there's warcaster and stuff, but you take those things normally then, right? That's the stuff you kind of do always. So
you
why
take it a
not
little
have
earlier
a
than you normally would.
sure, exactly,
Usually, like we keep using wizard as sort of the base for the
right,
conversation, but wizards don't take feats at 4th and 8th level because you got to get to 18 and then to 20 for your intelligence.
yeah,
And then if you are lucky enough to be in a game that gets to 12 or higher up, that's when you start thinking about the feats that kind of augment, your spell casting.
yeah,
Optimization is important. You want to get those +1s as soon as you can, but once you've played a long time and you're really comfortable, you don't care about your stats. You got to roll a 20 at some point,
yeah.
and there's a 2 and a 3 on that. I know that better than anybody. So whether you're the DM or the player, like there's low numbers on there. So
Yeah,
if you're rolling well and fate is in your hands, the universe wants your character to succeed. Having those additional tools in your toolbox, it just makes the game that much more fun. And it's
yeah,
a team.
yep,
For usually, especially now with people kind of meeting online and playing D&D online and stuff like that, there's going to be levels of experience. And I feel like, if you're a more
yeah,
experienced player and you know how to squeeze all that optimization out of a session of Dungeons and Dragons, but you're playing with people that aren't as experienced, take the fun stuff so they can kind of take the lead and learn some of the things you've acquired over the years of playing. And you don't have to be as optimized. You don't have to be, as sharp.
yeah,
You don't have to have that max, stat.
yeah. You could judge
You
it
just have
based
some
on the
fun.
group you're in. Yeah,
I'm playing a pirate bard and I want to set the ship on fire while I chase down, the brigands who stole our booty. That ability is so good. Maybe you use it one time, but
it'll be
it's so
memorable.
good.
Yeah, it'll be
It's so
memorable.
good.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, uh, because it doesn't happen every session. It's something different, and that's what these third-party publishers are all about. And Kobold Press just does such a great job. Really,
yeah.
really good stuff.
I agree with you. The theme, the overall tone, the style is very well done, and I agree with you. I don't think anything in this supplement is like overpowered, a must take. It's an auto replace of something in 5th edition. I think it's really well balanced. They're a company that does put a lot into play testing. It's not, and this is not to say it's necessarily bad either, but it's not one person. It's not like a person creating a book. It's a team creating a book. It's a company basically that's putting all that effort and resources into play testing too. So I feel like it did come out, I think, more balanced to what you would see in a 5th edition game.
And some of the stretch goals are backer created spells. So there's going to be wacky ones in there too.
Sure. Yeah.
When you thumb through their monster manuals, there's a whole bunch of creatures were created by backers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the silliest ones it's the fun. Like, oh, look at that. I'm
Run
going to use it
everything.
because it's weird. But that a player
Yeah.
like a D&D player figured that one out. Like, that's not a, you know, the publisher is not going to use an entire page of this of this publication that they're selling other people with this, but a
Yeah.
backer would think of that. A backer
Run
would think of
everything by your DM, everybody. Run
yeah.
everything by the DM.
Oh yeah.
The rest of this like first half of the book is other player options. Like they have some racial options as well as some hooks for storylines. How your character would be a part of this, group. The Pyromancy Magic has this group called, I guess it would be like a faction called the Embers. So you could kind of hook yourself into a story through that faction, and also some items. So that's basically the first part. And then the second part of the book is the spells and the new spells. So let's jump to that section because I think that's what most people are going to buy this book for. It's going to be for the new spells and what they would want to see that's different. So let's do this first. Since you're my guest, you can start us off. You can tell us. We want to alternate back and forth as to the spells.
Sure.
So give me your. Let's do the top three here. Give me your third favorite spell in the book.
Well, there's one here. I mean, I guess it's technically two. There's a major and a minor version.
Perfect.
But the flame step.
Flame step. Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, I really like it because again, it's they give you the list of like the suggested spellcaster classes. They can't mention artificer, unfortunately.
Right, because it's not in the SRD.
But there's plenty of spells, even in this little preview, where I'd be like, artificer would take that.
Right.
So, just because it's not there, again, if you're playing an artificer and you're like, oh, this spell is so good, I can science my way into having this somehow, talk to the DM. They're just simply not allowed to put it there. Otherwise, they probably would. I also think the preview said they're introducing the witch class.
Oh, cool. I don't think I saw that. Was that in one of the advertisements at the end?
I think it's. I think I don't know if it was in the advertisement or in the opening text. But
gotcha. Okay.
I believe that's going to be in there also. But anyway, so I like Flame Step as an arcane trickster.
Sure.
Because it gets you out of a sticky situation. It lets you to teleport. It's a bonus action. So you can still do your crazy rogue nonsense with your action. You still have your movement. It does do some fire damage, but there's an option in the spell which I think is really great. Like there's even a variation of the spell in the spell.
Yeah, let me read the spells for those listening to this. You teleport. It's a first level spell. Actually, let me point that out. It's first level conjuration spell. It's available to the bard, the sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. It's a bonus action. It's got a range of only 10 feet. It's verbal, somatic, and material, and it's instantaneous. Here's what happens. You teleport to an unoccupied space that you can see within range. Immediately after you teleport, a blast of fire appears in the space you previously occupied. Creatures within 5 feet of the space you left make a dexterity saving throw, taking 2d6 fire damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful. And here's the part you just mentioned. You could choose to have it not deal damage. If you do, no saving throws are required, and a cloud of smoke appears centered on the space you left. The area of the smoke is obscured, and the smoke lasts until the end of your turn. So it's got this little weird obscuring smoke if you don't want to do damage.
And I think it's that variant that makes it a great rogue spell, because sometimes the rogue does something ill-advised and doesn't get away with it necessarily.
Right.
And he's got to make a move. They have cunning action to disengage. They have these tools available to them to get out. But it's this, there's no save. There's no, the creatures can do X, Y, Z to, it literally a column of smoke where you used to be.
Yeah.
And you're only moving 10 feet. So, you turn the corner, you're burglarizing a mansion or something, you're stealing or whatever. You turn the corner and there's a guard and he's looking right at you. There's no stealth check in the world you can make. I don't care what your modifier is. But you can teleport 10 feet back around the corner leaving a cloud of smoke right there, and then keep on running. And that guard thinks you're like has to take a second to clear the smoke and see that you're not there anymore.
Nightcrawler style.
Yeah. So not super powerful. You're only going 10 feet. So it's not like Misty Step or Dimension Door or any of these sort of signature teleportation spells. It's a little thing to get you out of a pinch.
Yeah.
So for a wizard, that's great. You got to get out of melee range. Damage is always helpful. But the one drawback, to fire damage is a lot of things have fire resistance. I think poison is the most like immune and resistant damage type, probably.
That's what they say. Yeah, people have analyzed it.
But as popular as fire damage is, a lot of things are resistant to.
True.
So damage is not the only move. Damage is not the only resource that you have to, factor in. It's like, what other stuff can you do? And you're really getting 2 spells in one. You're getting the fire, damage left behind, or this possible distraction or decoy or,
and the teleport. Right. Exactly.
Right. And you still get the movement.
A lot of versatility. I agree with you. And you were saying this is kind of a double spell here as well, because you have the major and the minor. The major, obviously, the big difference is the damage. It's 66 fire damage. And
you can teleport further. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You could teleport, what is it, 30 feet, 15 feet?
Yeah, it's 30. And then the plume of smoke is bigger.
15 feet you teleport, and the fire and the smoke is bigger. But yeah, it's basically the same type of smell.
And spell. I don't think arcane tricksters get that high a level for their spell slots,
right?
Which is why I like the first level, because maybe not every wizard is going to take that, but if I'm playing an arcane trickster, I'm picking that spell.
I could see a bard, sorcerer, so anybody really taking it though. It's just if fire's your thing, it's another.
Great for bards. Sometimes you're not in a battle. Sometimes you're on a stage, and you're maybe you're you have to cover for, there was a magic show in town and somehow you got stuck taking his place because he's disappeared, died or something. Maybe the group killed him accidentally.
Yeah, and you could
in
a puff of smoke.
Pissed about it. So it's like, what? You got to put on the show in his place because it's for orphans, or it'll start a war because it's like at a big meeting of kings for a treaty or something. And the bard's like, I don't know, and it's just a poof. Yeah. It's fancy. The wizard does prestidigitation for lights, and the bard's doing this nonsense. It's more than just a combat spell.
Yeah, and that's why it's good. I agree.
Anything in D&D, if you can use it outside of combat or inside of combat, it's that much more valuable. It's that much better of a resource, I think. So I really like that spell.
Nice. Yeah, I can't agree more. So my third spell, top 3 spells. I'm going to go with the Arrow of Ash, which I think you actually mentioned. You kind of had an eye on that one as well. Oh, yeah. But Arrow of Ash is it's pretty nasty. It's 5th level evocation spell. You can casting time is 1 action. Range is 120 feet. It does a 30-foot radius sphere, and it's verbal and somatic components, and it's instantaneous. So here's what what happens. Basically, you conjure a missile of hardened ash that launches towards a point you can see within the range, where it explodes on impact. And all the creatures within 5 feet of that point make a dexterity saving throw, taking 3d8 bludgeoning and 3d8 fire damage on a failure, or half as much on a success. And then after you deal the damage, which again, this is kind of like a theme here we're seeing, is that there's some sort of secondary ability. After dealing the damage, the missile releases a 30-foot radius cloud of choking ash that persists for 1 minute or until dispersed by a strong wind. And when the creature starts its turn in the cloud, it must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be poisoned until the beginning of their next turn. Poison is nasty. It can be debilitating, right? Disadvantage on all your attacks. It's nothing to sneeze at. And when you combine that with the 68 effective damage, it's a lot. And I remember I told you math. I got some math here for you. Ready? So equivalent level spells, a 5th level spell, evocation type damage dealers. We'll start with something very simple. Cone of Cold. 8d6 is the damage on Cone of Cold. And this is giving you, or it might have been 88. Did I write down something different? I think it's 88. I think it's 8 d8s for that one, but 8 d8. So it's 2 d8 more, but you then don't have the radius of the cloud with poison. So I think that 2 d8 damage, which is what, effectively 9 points of extra damage, for the ability to affect a 30-foot radius cloud of poison gas. I mean, that I think I take the gas almost every time, unless I'm going to get you in it.
Yeah.
Then I won't do it. But that's a really good trade-off. And then just to compare it again, Agnazar's Scorcher, if you scale it up to 5th level, you want to make that a 5th level spell, it would be 68 straight up. So this scales perfectly, and while it doesn't beat a true 5th level spell in damage, its secondary ability, I think, makes it, like you said, more versatile, more, it gives you more tools, like we've been talking about, and I like that.
And
Thoughts?
I like that there's 2 damage types, right? Because like we were saying, a lot of things, high, especially at higher level, you're fighting devils, you're fighting demons, they're elementals. They may resist the fire damage, but not the bludgeoning. They might even be immune to the fire, but the secondary effect is not poison damage. It's the poisoned condition.
That's true. Different.
Mm-hmm. And while a lot of things are, undead and stuff like that, they're all immune or at best, resistant to poison. There's a lot of holes in the poisoned condition immunity.
Sure.
Because, and I think that's purposeful. It's because it's not actually hurting you. It's it's an obscure, it's messing up your breath. It's getting in your eyes.
There's a lot to consider with this spell, because like you said, if something is resistant to fire, it's also doesn't mean it's going to be resistant to the poison. And even, like I said, it's the condition. They have to be immune to the condition poison to not get affected by it. So it's a pretty wide net to cast. The bludgeoning, the fire, the poison. I like this spell. I think it's really cool. I think for a 5th level spell, it does just the right amount of damage with an extra versatile secondary ability. So that's my pick. We'll go to your number 2.
My number 2 is it's actually a cantrip.
Oh,
because there are a few cantrips in here.
Which one?
It's called Spray of Glass.
Okay.
Which I think just shows some of the amount of thought and creativity that went into this sort of pyromantic sort of example of a style of magic.
Yeah, so
it doesn't do fire. Fire created, what happens when glass comes from burning sand. It comes from sand. It's melted sand.
Yep.
So, and that's why, like, I wanted to mention artificers in here as well, because this makes sense, for an artificer, because an artificer can't necessarily conjure flame, magically, but in his downtime, he can have a device that, takes a bunch of sand, a raw material that's just kind of around.
Yeah.
And turns it into these pieces of glass that he can then launch from a little tiny catapult or whatever, so it's not necessarily a magical thing. There's room to kind of create a narrative of what your character is doing. That's not just simply the description of the spell. I mean, it's kind of the same as Vicious Mockery, except it's like a cone, so you could potentially hit more than one person.
That's a good comparison for the damage as well. D4
for the effect. It's a D4 of damage and disadvantage on its next attack.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But a 15-foot cone, so it's right in front of you. So a squishy caster that's got a lot of people in front of them, that's bad.
Right.
But if you give them disadvantage on their attacks, that's a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. Let's read the spell in its entirety so we can get a good picture. So evocation cantrip. It is an action to cast self, but it's a 15-foot cone, like you mentioned. It's verbal component only, so it's pretty good. Instantaneous, and a spray of sharp glass shards shoots from your hand. Now you could flavor it, like you said, if you're an artificer, if you're other class, you could flavor it how it feels best to you and your DM. But the creatures all within the cone take a dex save and take 1d4 slashing damage and have disadvantage. So like you said, it's like glass shards blown into your face. I mean, you're definitely not going to be seeing perfect after that. So
yeah. So it's similar to something that 5th edition already has, slight tweak.
Hmm.
Dexterity save, that's a little bit easier to make for, I think,
Eh.
a lot of creatures. But at the same time, you can hit more than one potential target. So I like that that's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah, you know what though?
Um,
The big hulking, strong monsters and NPCs you're fighting, they don't have good decks. They rely on armor or big thick hides or whatever. So you know, if dex is not terrible and disadvantage against something that's a martial threat, it's great.
Always helpful.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. I like it, and like it's a cantrip too, because it's just something that's a more variety than firebolt.
And if you like the effect of Vicious Mockery, and you're going to play a bard, but maybe you're not the best at like improvisation of coming up with something funny or to mock them with, you get the exact same effect, mechanically, but you don't have to have a bunch of quips lined up, to say at the table. You know what I mean? Not everybody can do that. I remember the campaign that we played in when we met. CJ was playing a bard, and when he did inspiration, he had like Vince Lombardi quotes
Yes.
that like a whole little booklet of them that he would draw from. And not everybody can come up with that stuff. So
Not
they
everybody
like the
can be
effect.
CJ, is
Yeah,
really what we're
yeah,
saying here.
yeah. And again,
Yeah.
would be great for an artificer. I think an arcane trickster would be good because maybe they want to play a ninja and they want to throw a bunch of ninja stars.
Oh yeah.
Hey DM, this is kind of what I was thinking. Maybe okay, take this cantrip, call it whatever you want, but this is the effect. And they were just like up their sleeve or something.
Yeah, and you
You
know,
know,
like that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, although the artificer is not in this, and you know, things like that, there might be some classes that don't have access to these types of spells, but you could work with your DM and talk about it, because
oh
I,
yeah,
like I said, I really don't think that this is necessarily like none of these spells are game breaking. Like we said, we're showing comparisons. They do mirror some effects, and it's just a different effect. And I think that's what makes it uh, very usable in 5th edition. And I don't think your DM would really be too opposed to that. I mean, obviously you got to work with them. Some DMs are very strict with that, but over the years, I feel like I've been so open to third party stuff more so than ever. And I think that that's going to trend even more as we continue here. All right, so my second pick is Immolating Geist, and I hope I
Mhm.
pronounced that right. This one is a 3rd level necromancy spell because it's got some cool spooky spirits. So here we go. It's a casting time, 1 action, 90 feet range, verbal, somatic, and material. The material is a charred linen ribbon, so you can easily get that right. Concentration spell, which I'm always careful to pick only like a handful of concentration spells. I'll forget, but this one is concentration up to a minute, and you summon a flaming spirit that takes up an unoccupied space within range. The spirit is medium in terms of size, and it takes on the appearance of a ghost wreathed in flames. And as a bonus action, you can move the spirit up 20 feet. It can enter the space of another creature and pass through solid objects like walls, provided you can see the space the spirit will occupy. A creature who begins or ends its turn in the same space as the spirit needs to make a wisdom saving throw, taking 3d6 fire and 3d6 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. So why I like this a lot is, first off, the flavor of it. Oh my god, a friggin' flaming specter. It's like so cool. And then on top of it, it almost has like a magic weapon, or sorry, spiritual weapon vibe, as well as like flaming sphere, where you could just kind of move it, and when you hit onto somebody, they can't avoid it, right? It's not like they can just now, okay, when it gets to my turn, I'll do this or get out of the way. You can't misty step out of the way. It starts at the beginning of your turn. So you put it on somebody, they're going to be taking some damage. And necromancy damage is, I feel like, unless you're undead, you don't really resist that. So I like it a
Yeah,
lot.
and even using it on a creature that's undead. First of all, it's a wisdom save,
Mm,
so a skeleton's not making that saving throw.
no.
So it might even be, or like a white or something that's a little bit more powerful. Maybe it doesn't even take the necrotic, but it's still 3d6 fire that you're more likely to hit. And it
Sure.
looks cool. It's flavor.
Yeah.
Like like lately in and from the Radiant Citadel game that we played, I- I'm all about minions now. I wanna I wanna make me some minions. And this is like an extra little buddy,
Yep.
that okay, oh, this is what I do, and then this is what my guy did. Like it's a little bit more to do, a little bit more to keep track. It helps you keep track of the battle when it's not your turn.
Yeah.
Us experienced players, especially, we're sitting in front of our computer. I'm sure people have other tabs open, and maybe when somebody's got their turn going and it's a little bit longer and
What?
higher level play, your turns tend to drag on a little bit longer.
Not
You
on
have
my
other choices to
channel.
make. Uh, you know, having these other things on the field, you're trying to maximize it. Again, it is concentration.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you're in a position where maybe you don't have to make that concentration check to let the spirit go do its thing, or maybe you need that spirit over there distracting the enemy while you go do something dangerous.
Yeah.
You got to go to that, get that, you got to go get that MacGuffin out of the treasure chest, and your fire spirit is tying up, the skeletons that are guarding the room, but you flip open the chest and up a dart comes out and shoots you in the neck because it was trapped. The rogue couldn't get there, or he's incapacitated, or something like that. So minions are my thing right now. Fourth edition had all these little abilities that gave you little guys and just like this, not super strong on their own, but they were flavorful and they were just so much fun. I had a witch that I played in fourth edition that could conjure this giant diabolical looking skeleton, but it could only attack objects. It couldn't help you in battle. It would break down a door for you, but it was crazy looking. So I used it as a distraction more than anything else.
Nothing wrong with a little distraction. Honestly, like you said,
absolutely,
it's good
it's
in
not
all
about
scenarios.
Damage dice. It's not all about damage rolls.
Right.
And I agree. This spell is really creative and really interesting. And I played that warlock where all of his magic was gloomy.
Right.
It was always some weird twist on the spell to make it, gloomy. A spirit that's on fire, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's pretty
if
cool.
you're playing a character like that, this spell definitely, maybe not the most optimal, but
well, I was going to say, in terms of optimization, think about it. Yes, everybody's going to compare this to Fireball, right? Because it's the same level. But Fireball, yes, if you have a lot of enemies and you're centering it in the perfect spot, of course Fireball's great. We all know that, right? That's why people take Fireball and not Lightning Bolt, right? But Fireball is one time, right? It happens once. In theory, this thing, if you're putting it on there, the big bad that's basically not going to move anywhere else because it wants to kill all of us, right? If it wants to kill all of us, then I'm putting it right on the big bad, and it's just going to sit there for turn after turn. It's like having a mini Fireball on it every single turn, 66 every single turn for a minute. I mean, that is going to do over the course of the combat is going to be way better than Fireball every turn, because you can do this and then Fireball, or this and then another attack. It just has a lot more staying power than, let's say, just some instantaneous attack like Fireball, where you can combine it. Why not both, right? It's really like that, the way I see it.
And again, the two different damage types just make it that much more useful. They might have resistance or immunity to one, but
right,
not the other.
Right,
so you're getting some of the effect. The spell's not wasted.
Yes, fighting like a pit fiend or something. It's not going to be totally useless. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so we get to our big number ones here, Kyle. Do you want to share yours first?
Yes, I mentioned a little bit beforehand. I read this spell and got an idea for a one shot or a side quest, and that's Flames Chronicle Unleashed.
Should I read it first?
Go ahead. It's big.
Okay, yes, it's a 7th level spell, so we're getting up there now. 7th level spell. My other one's pretty high too. 7th level spell. It is a 10-minute ritual cast, 10 minutes or ritual. The range is self, but there's a radius of a square mile, and the components are verbal, somatic, and material. And here's the material: a sheet of scorched platinum worth 500 gold, which is destroyed in the process. It's instantaneous when you cast it. You summon the memories of a great fire from history, inviting the flames to return and spread across the area within to recall a fire 1 square mile around you. Choose one of the following effects when you cast a spell: wind, swelter, and desiccate. So here's the wind. You create a blast of hot wind that explodes out from you. Unsheltered tiny beasts exposed to the wind die automatically. So it's like a nuke, is what you're saying here, right? Unsheltered tiny beasts exposed to the wind die automatically. Small and medium creatures must succeed a strength saving throw or be knocked prone and take 3d6 bludgeoning damage. The swelter is temperature of the air increases in the area. The area increases dramatically. Any creatures affected by the spell must succeed on Constitution saving throw or gain 2 levels of exhaustion. And then desiccate. You have all the bodies of water less than 10 feet square in size evaporate instantly. It includes water which is carried or worn. All water-based creatures in the area, such as water elementals, take 3d10 force damage, basically getting evaporated. So yeah, tell me, I could see some story hooks here, but tell me your idea.
I mean, when at first glance, you look at the casting time. If you're doing it as a ritual, it's 20 minutes. That's a long time. So it's not really it's not a combat spell at all. You don't have that much time. Even if you use the spell slot for 10 minutes, I don't care how high level the combat is, it's not less than 10 minutes. This is a story spell. This is a spell you use to come up with a creative means of solving a problem, or the reason why I think I got the idea for a one shot. It's, the group is hired because of a corrupted druid grove, or, a cemetery has been taken over by ghouls or something to that effect. And they come to you and says, oh, we need this ritual performed, but, we need the materials. We need someone to perform the ritual. Because we're not strong enough to do it ourselves. It's fraught with danger. It's, these creatures are killing our guardians. They're corrupted, the animals themselves, and we need to purge the land. Right. So yeah,
nuke them.
Yeah. So you need 20 minutes, so, your druid, druids are pretty powerful. Druid, for whatever reason, is not on the class list on the spell
for this one.
And again, this is playtest.
Yeah,
I would highly suggest Kobold Press put druids on this, because this is all this screams druid magic.
Let me just see what spells are they. It's sorry, which lists
bard,
are there?
cleric, sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. They left. Okay. It's the one class they left out.
The standard.
Which stuff, again, this is a preview version, right? Mm-hmm. They're always working on the final product, but I highly suggest add druid to that. But, the druid, who's one of the more powerful classes, now he has to spend 10 minutes, he or she has to spend 10 minutes to make this ritual happen. Maybe 20 minutes if they don't want to burn a 7th level spell slot, which is big. That's a huge resource, The rest of the party has to protect the druid for 20 minutes in a corrupted druid grove. The trees are coming to life and trying to kill you, and the animals are turning against you, and the air is filled with poison gas, and you just got to survive. The materials, 500 gold pieces worth of platinum is one thing. Turning it into a sheet is another.
I know, right?
And you have to scorch the platinum. I don't even know how to do that. And I don't think your average blacksmith is going to know how to do that either. He might be able to make a sheet out of it, temper it and lay it out, but to scorch platinum without like destroying it, when it's a thin sheet, you don't want to waste that $500 worth of platinum, because, it's a fair amount of money. By the time you have 7th level spells, you probably have the money, but that much platinum in one place maybe is pretty rare.
Yeah, you're right. We oftentimes hand wave like buying items, but maybe in this case you don't. If it's so
and again by design, because the effect is a square mile.
Yeah, I know.
This is a huge spell. It's a huge event. Well, no matter where you are, you do this. It affects the landscape. It affects whatever kingdom you're in. It affects more than just the task that you're performing. So you have to be careful about where you cast it. It consumes the material. Then you got to start all over again to do it again. This is a one shot waiting to happen. And then when it's over, the people who told you the ritual, the people who brought this, we need you to perform this ritual, they bequeath it onto you. And now, the druid has this at his disposal, or the wizard has a scroll that he can put into his book to always kind of have this. So the player doesn't have to use a learned spell or a prepared spell or something like that, because again, this is so specific. You're not going to have that in your prepared list. You're not going to, a warlock's not going to use that valuable learned spell or bard. Those are precious. You need those.
Let me switch this around a bit, because you got my brain thinking now. What if the villain wants to cast this, and so you have to stop them because there's this special item that's made of pure platinum that you're both trying to get? Whoever can get it first can cast the spell. You could flip it around. Now you're trying to prevent people from casting this because it would decimate the landscape.
That swelter effect in a farm community, it destroys the soil.
You're right. Absolutely. You could definitely make it something like
just the drastic rise in temperature will kill all the crops.
Yeah. There's so much to do here. There's so much with this. Actually, I think there's a bunch of Candlekeep mysteries and Radiant Citadels that actually would be completely solved by having this.
And then once obviously the PCs might not know what the effect is, but as the villain's like, if I pull this off and while they're trying to stop me, right, and my minions keep them at bay until this pops off, I'm going to be able to pick these guys off easy because now they have 2 levels of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Exhaustion is a mechanic because it's so easily kind of recuperated from that I think is really underused. Like I'm thinking like my next campaign, like how can I maybe get a little bit more out of that? Maybe have it happen more often. Hey guys, if you're knocked unconscious in a battle and you're revived, you have a level of exhaustion.
Interesting. I like this. A really, really good spell. Good choice.
I'm contemplating because it's a mechanic, right? It's there. It's built into the game. Mm-hmm. How do we squeeze a little bit more out of it?
Yeah, that's true. It's an underutilized mechanic for sure.
And 2 at once. You get one level that's like a warning shot, right?
Yeah.
It's inconvenient, but okay. But you get to that second and then that third, and it really starts to hamper your ability. So maybe just to even get to the bad guy who was going to cast this, you had to journey through the desert and you ran out of water. Maybe you already have 1 level of exhaustion, everybody.
Yeah.
It's like this way to kind of like really up the, so, like, okay, we're going to get the bad guy, even though he cast his ritual, and maybe we'll figure out some way to help the land afterwards, but we're going to get this guy. But now you got all this exhaustion. It makes it that much harder. And he's fresh. He was just sitting there chanting for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Now he's a new problem you got to solve.
Listen, you got my mind going now. So that's really what matters. And just that means it's a good spell.
And then afterwards, if you're successful, the reward is now you have this tool for the target. You didn't pick the spell. You didn't use up any of your resources. This is just something that you have. It's a lot of work to pull it off, but it might be a way out.
Yeah. Game changer.
A bad situation, or a way to solve a bad situation, or maybe you just want to, there are some groups just want to cause carnage.
That's for sure.
We
all know them.
If there's an invading army coming, but they're using, the local lakes to replenish their water supply. Well, you use desiccate, it's horrible for the land, but now your enemy doesn't have water.
Yeah.
And that army will be weaker when they come to see, for the siege of the castle.
Even goblins need water.
Gotta Grung require water.
Yeah.
If it's an army of Grung, if you dry everything out, they're going to turn around and go home.
Poor Grung.
They need water they got to submerge in water every day. Forget it. We're out of here.
You know what? Your choice of your top spell, now I feel bad. My top spell is not going to be nearly as good. Well, let's jump to my top pick here, and I chose this one because I do think it's there's a good balance. I don't think it's overpowered. It's one of my favorites because of how I think unique the mechanic is here. So I picked Ian's Armor of Glass, and I think Ian is a character in the Kobold Press universe,
Yes, he's
multiverse,
sort of
whatever.
like the Big B or
Yeah.
Mordenkainen,
Okay.
Otto
Yes, that's what I figured. I figured
that
it's
sort
one
of.
of those like named wizards that everybody knows, but within the Kobold race, Kobold Press stuff. So Ian's Armor of Glass is a 6th-level conjuration spell. It's Bard, Cleric, Sorcerer, Wizard. It's a 1 casting action. Self is the range, and it's a verbal, somatic, and material. You need a glass marble inlaid with silver, and it's 50 gold pieces, but doesn't get used up. So it's pretty. You can use it again and again. The duration of the spell is 1 hour, which I really like. So it's not just like a minute or more. You can cast this when you feel like you need it and, maneuver still through the dungeon for a while. But here's what it does. You conjure a magical suit of glass armor that fits over your existing armor and apparel. The armor appears in any color or pattern you choose, automatically. Love that. The armor imposes no disadvantage or penalties while you wear it. So it's just like a coating. Okay. While you wear the armor, you're vulnerable to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. But to be honest, when you're at that high level, I feel like everything's crazy types of damage. So it's just the standard non-magical damage that you're vulnerable to, which I love this like trade-off here. But you have resistance to all other types of damage. So you get hit by another caster spell, you get, whatever the elemental damage is from a breath weapon or whatever, you are resistant to everything. The only thing that's going to hurt you is regular old weapons. And additionally, when the armor first appears, you get a number of charges equal to your proficiency bonus. And that's going to be 4 at minimum, because when you cast this a 6th-level spell, you're going to have 4 if you're, going straight through. You're going to have to be, not going straight, you're going to have to have it anyway. You're going to be proficiency 4. So you're getting a base 4 charges. And whenever you're forced to make a saving throw versus a spell or magical effect, you can use your reaction to spend one of the armor's charges to give you advantage on the triggering saving throw. If the armor is ever reduced to 0 charges, the spell ends early and the armor disappears. Otherwise, it lasts for the entire duration or until you choose to end it. No action required, which is also another good thing too, because some spells require you to like focus on ending it. This one, if you're like, oh god, we're fighting a whole ton of people who have, regular weapons, then you could just, drop it and it's not a big deal. I love this spell because it gives you a trade-off. Very few times would we think about taking a trade-off because it's like, well, why would I want to hurt myself? But this is such a unique, the only thing that's going to hurt you are the things that you never really are scared about. And then you get resistance to everything. And additionally, the 4 saving throw advantages, I feel like that's huge. I mean, sometimes at those high levels, you get hit with the wrong wisdom spell or charisma spell, you're out of the game, right? You're done.
Feeble
So
mind or
yeah, like
confusion or, yeah.
those high level spells or other, and it does specify magic effects, because it could be something that's just magical, that's not a spell. We see a lot of
Right.
NPCs nowadays without spell slots. They just have magical abilities. So
Right.
I think this is a really cool one, and it's unique. I love, again, flavoring, right? Like you get to
Or
pick your
like
armor.
magical weapon damage.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So
If the creature stat block says their attacks are considered magical, whether it's a werewolf's claw
right.
or whatever. So it's just plain old normal bows and arrows and swords are extra bad.
Yeah. And
Everything else, you're safer.
yes.
And if you're that caster where all your spells are concentration, and it's so frustrating to lose concentration, especially like, it reduces the amount of damage you're going to take, so the save is easier.
Right. Your con
and
save,
you basically have legendary saves. You have another shot at succeeding.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, like at the high levels, if you happen to encounter something with a henchman with bows, there's not going to be an arrow or a sword hit from a henchman that's going to be like enough to drop your spells. Right. That's big, and this is not concentration.
Now you're vulnerable.
Oh,
so
I see what you're saying.
Maybe it only does 6 or 7 damage. Right. Now it's doing 14.
But still, you're going to pass.
Maybe they
10.
crit.
Yeah.
Now you're in, oh geez,
True.
And if you're a wizard, you don't have a lot of hit points to begin with.
Yeah, but that's the trade-off.
You have to pay attention. You have to be aware of your surroundings. Or a trap. A pit trap is non-magical piercing damage.
That's true, actually.
Or a rock, a rock or a cinder block trap.
Sure.
A snare or something in the ceiling.
Right.
You step on the wrong tile.
Yeah.
That's non-magical bludgeoning damage that you are now vulnerable to.
Yeah. Which
you're dead.
You could be. It depends on what it is. But that's what I actually like. I like that there's a thing that you have this awesome ability, resistant to everything basically, and advantage on your saving throws. At least three a day, maybe 4 if you need to. But it's like all these amazing buffs for this trade-off that's like, oh, it's such a it's such a minor thing, it feels like. So it's like it keeps you on your toes. And I think that is good for storytelling too. Like there's going to be moments where like, oh, if that was just a different type, it's going to make that more epic, right? I love it. I love stuff like that. So yeah, this is not the optimal pick maybe, but I just love
that vulnerability is there for DMs.
Yes.
That is a gift to every DM that has a player using this spell, because a little peek behind the DM screen, sometimes we get very frustrated by the abilities at the disposal of our players.
What? Never.
It's like, oh, nothing ever works because this guy always does that. And then, oh yeah, there's a pit trap. It's normal blood, normal piercing damage. Maybe it wasn't there when you were thinking about the encounter, but you're like, it's going south. And you're like, let me shake it up. Oh yeah, there was a pit trap there. Totally. Yeah, totally. There was a pit trap there. Oh yeah, that skeleton animates in the corner. You see that? He's on the map. He gets up and he stabs you. It's just that's a little something for the DMs out there.
Well, like we said, this is a book for the players and the DMs. So, I think this is going to wrap up our conversation here. Just a reminder, the Kickstarter link is down below. This is the Deep Magic Volume 2, and I think some of the tiers that you can sign up for actually give you a copy of Deep Magic Volume 1. So if you never got that in the Kickstarter, they come together. There's like some special leather-bound covers as options if you go for the higher tiers. There's even like a special edition I think they need to unlock, but all of those options you can find on the Kickstarter page for this Kobold Press new release, Deep Magic Volume 2. Kyle, thank you for coming on and chatting with me. You opened my eyes to this company a year ago, and now I'm excited to get this book.
All right. I appreciate you having me, Bob, anytime.
Yeah.
Well, not anytime, because I can never do stuff like this, but you know what I mean. It's always a pleasure, and I always want to say yes.
You're always welcome anytime you'd like.
I appreciate your as always, your understanding when I can't say yes every time.
Yeah, listen, I get it. Real life comes first, and then we'll game when we can. We'll game when we can. But we'll have you on soon. I'm sure of it.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
All right, everybody.
Until next time.
We'll see you on the tabletop. Have a great night.